I'm talking about because you had a daughter. So, and and they're different, like daughters, and I know you know Jen. She has two. So, but and they have difference because I have a son also, and like he was a piece of cake in the teenage years, but yes, in the early years. And if he sees this, I'm sorry, honey. And she was like, everybody would say to me, oh, my kid is going through the terrible twos, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, because she's not. And then she turned 3, and I remember looking at her and going, what? Where did you go? They stole you. They replaced you. You look like her, but I don't think you're her. And then in her teenage years, her dad and I got divorced, so we were already doing that mother-daughter headbutting thing. And then, of course, I was at fault for the divorce and all that. And it's funny to say that her addiction brought us closer than I ever thought we could be. Because in the end, we had a relationship that I never thought would have been possible. If you had looked at me when she was 15 and said, oh my gosh, she's going to be your best friend, I'd been like, you're nuts. Because she hates me. She wouldn't talk to me now. But right before she passed, she said to me, I know I gave you a hard time, Mom, but I knew that you loved me and I know that you always had my back. And she said, and that's probably why I gave you such a hard time, because I know you would never walk away. And you're absolutely right. But she struggled with substance use disorder for about 6 years. And she was doing good. She had come down here to see us with her stepsister. We thought for sure that she was doing good. Even my brother thought, she looks great. She's going to pull this off. She went back up to New Jersey. I'm not really sure what happened. And 9 days later, I got a call at 5:11 in the morning and she was gone. To my knowledge to this day, nothing has really happened to the dealer up there. But Kerri died from what they say was an accidental overdose of heroin that was laced with both fentanyl and carfentanil. So it was an accident, and I don't care what you say. You can't convince me that if you laced it with carfentanil and fentanyl, that was your intent. But it is what it is. So now today I will not let her die in vain. I will remember, it's up in New Jersey, so there's really nothing I can do about it. And I was already down here when it happened. But the point of all of this is to make sure that our kids don't die in vain. Kerri's addiction, just like Joseph's and JJ's and Jose's and Paula's, it doesn't define them. Okay? They were so much more, as you know, than their addiction. Kerri was a 4.0 college graduate. She had a BA in forensic psychology. She was a gifted artist, as you can tell by the logo, because that's her drawing. A gifted writer. She loved public speaking. She did this so much better than I did. So later on tonight, I'll be cursing her out because I had to talk again. But I will not. There was so much more to her, and I need people to remember that it didn't define her. And if each one of these things can save a life, whether her face is on a banner or a billboard, or it's just because I'm doing an interview or I'm talking in front of a group, then she didn't die in vain, as long as she saves one or she helps one. Because our kids are the ones really doing it, because it's their legacies. It's all about them. So, hi. So, the one thing I do want to mention is that the Dandelion Project has started the Faces of Hope banners. So they are a set of banners with 12 faces of loss on one and 12 faces of recovery on the other. And we don't print them unless we can print them in a set. And the purpose is to show that for every loss, we've also been able to recover one. Kerri would want everybody on the recovery side. And that's, I try and set, like, if I do them in a public speaking, I have the loss on one side and recovery on the other, and I will say that she wants you on this side. And then recently, a grandmother reached out to me and said, well, what about the families left behind? And I said, what about the families left behind? And she's like, would you do a banner? I'm like, well, I need to sit on that for a minute, because I don't know how I would do that. So we have another one. Now, the loss and recovery get printed in a set. They don't get printed unless I have 12 and 12. Now, the 5th set, the loss is filled, because we can fill that loss. We can fill 1,000 banners with the loss. It's the recovery people that have a hard time putting their faces out there, And we've had 2 on one of the recovery banners that have relapsed. And I'm not taking them off the banners, because they'll get there again. And if not, then they'll have to unfortunately go on the other one. But we started the Faces of Hope with the families. So people send me a family picture. There's only 8 faces on that. That one will get printed alone. That's not part of the set. It's out here on this table. So we have one. I am 3 pictures away from the second one. So if anybody wants to give me your family picture, I would be honored to have your family on those as well. You're nodding, so I'm thinking it's coming.
So let me ask you a question. If it was a family picture, would it be with my other 2 kids and Ryder as well?
It's whatever you want. I have two on there that actually have their children that passed in the picture. Then I have one mom who lost two sons, and they each had a child. So she only gave me the picture of the two children. It's rough with that. As long as I have your permission to put them up there, then I don't have a problem with putting the kids up. Some of the people on the recovery banner said, you know, my daughter is my reason for surviving, and I'm like, if you want to give me permission, I'll put you and her on the board. It's fine. And so there's 3 or 4 families out there on the recovery that have their whole family. So it's whatever you want. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And then I will do a booklet for that and the other banners as well. And it'll be the same format. And you've done a booklet already.
Yeah.
With the name and the forever age and all that. So.
How much is it?
The banners aren't for sale right now. The booklets will be for sale.
How much is it to put in?
It's something. The Dandelion Project does we are a 501c3 and we do not charge anything. Everything we do goes back into the community if there is a charge. But most of the stuff we do are on our own. So we have people that will sponsor the banners, we have people that sponsor the baskets, and that's how we get it all done. But there is no charge for the banners. As a grieving mom, I have a hard time charging people because it's, you know, when I went to therapy, this is the thought process behind it. When I went to therapy after Carrie died, I didn't go after DJ died, I didn't go after my stepdaughter died. I went, but I could not handle after Carrie. And I sat there on his couch and he said, well, before we start, your insurance doesn't cover it, it'll be $100. And I went, yeah, no. I'm crying on my own couch for a whole hell of a lot less. I don't wanna, and I mean, he was a great person, and it wasn't his fault, the insurance company didn't do it. But at that moment I said, no family needs to worry about whether they're going to have support because their health insurance won't cover it. Or because there's a fee, I won't do it, I can't. You know, like the billboards and stuff, that's a different thing, we have no choice. But these little banners, and then eventually I think I probably will sell them as long as the person that's asking for them is using them the way they're meant to be used, which is, you know, loss and recovery. Because that's what they're, you know, I had one that asked me, could I just get the one, you know. I don't mean to be that way, but that's not what they're meant to do. They're meant to send a message out there because it's not just about raising awareness, it's about protecting the ones that are also in recovery because we want them to heal too. I don't ever want to I look at enough of you every single day in the same boat, and I don't ever want to look at another parent. I've heard that scream that I knew came out of me, that came out of you, came out of you, came out of you, and I don't ever, you know, I'll go, obviously, but I don't want to. A year ago, my aunt passed away, and my cousin came down, and we found her together. But I had stayed outside in the driveway because I kissed my aunt so bad for like the week before that, and I said to my cousin, she's gonna stab me, so you go in, I'm not gonna go in. She's so mad at me right now. And my cousin screamed, because and I had to run in the house. And I thought, as soon as I heard that scream, I knew exactly what it was, and I looked at the neighbor and I'm like, you know what, I do this all the time. And now this is a family member that, you know, I wasn't there. Carrie died in New Jersey, so I wasn't there. My husband remembers the scream from here. 5:11 in the morning, I got the call. I couldn't tell you what happened at 5:12 or anything after that for a little while. I can piece it together from what people have told me, but that's it. I don't actually remember anything else. But that's what we do. That's our story. If you want to be on them, you have any questions, let me know. I have a couple people that I think are going to come up and speak and tell their stories. All right. This is Jose's mom.
Hopefully I don't cry.
It's all right, I'll just go in my water, so I'm gonna just jump in for a second.
Hi, my name is Leslie Collins. I lost my son 4 years ago, Christmas Day. He just made his 4th year anniversary. It's crazy how it happened. Am I shocked? Yes. Surprised? He was very happy. He was loved by everybody. Had friends everywhere. They would come to the house, pick him up. When he was younger, that's how it was. Because we used to, I live in Orlando, and we used to live by Universal. So he met a lot of, you know, people that had money. They would come pick him up, take him to the movies, whatever. He always had a ride. He didn't drive, but he always
That
found,
didn't-
yeah, he never had a license, he knew how to drive. Of course, obviously, you know, the PlayStation, they teach you how to drive and stuff. So that's
why I
how
drive
he
so well in
learned
Bob.
how to drive.
Yeah.
But he was very outgoing, quiet, shy, but he did have a lot of friends. Jose got into opiates, when 2014, he, was playing football and he broke his wrist. One of the players hit his arm with their helmet and it broke his wrist. So we noticed that the bone was sticking out after, like, he said he was fine, at the time, I think they said it was fractured, not broken. But later on, it did wind up, you know, breaking and stuff, but that's how it started, in 2014. So we were struggling with it for a while with him. We didn't notice it, that he was actually into, the opiates like that till about maybe 6 years later. Cause he was still doing his daily, you know, activities, there was no signs whatsoever. And I kinda knew some of the signs because my mother was a drug addict, alcoholic, I had all that in my family. So when I heard to see my child go through that, I was like, why? When you knew what I just came from, and I brought you here from New York to have a better life for you and your sister. And it was like, you know, brothers locked up here and there, you know, they were drug dealers back then, my brothers and stuff. You know, going to jail and things like that, whatever. One of my brothers was close with Jose. But the day that all this happened was December 21st. But little by little, you know, it escalated to this. I did put him in rehab. We went to twice. He stood for a month at the one in Umatilla.
Mhm.
He stood there. Awesome. He looked good, everything, and then I don't know what happened. I mean, I knew he was dealing with depression and alopecia he had as well too when he was younger. So he was dealing with that as well. Where people would say, oh, you got cancer and this, that, because he didn't have no hair. He was completely bald, no hair whatsoever, no eyebrows, nothing. But to get to the day that it happened, we were home. It was on a Tuesday. I was working. I had got a text that somebody wanted to buy candles, because I make candles. So I drove down to Ocoee, and while I was driving to go to Ocoee, he was coming up the block. So I was like, where are you coming from? He said downtown. So once he said downtown, I already, like you, but he didn't look high, that was the whole thing. And so he got in the car, he was like, you know this person you're going to go see, blah, 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 and I'm like, no. And he was like, well, how you gonna go and you don't got nobody with you? And I was like, all right, come on. So he came with me, and we're in the car, he's playing music, didn't have no phone, the boy didn't have no phone, he would always lose his phone. I was like, I ain't coming with you. So we're done. So he would borrow my phone, and he's like, oh, let's listen to this song and whatever. We're dancing in the car, going there. Came back home. It took us about an hour and a half to get back home from Ocoee. We get back, like I said, it was a Tuesday. Usually on Tuesdays, me and Ralph go to the bar to meet up with, you know, friends back then. And so I was as soon as I came in with him, he was starting a new job too, at a bakery right down the street from us and everything. So I felt like he was just starting to, you know, get his life together, get down the street, getting a job, you know, whatever. And when I went to go speak to somebody, my neighbor, next door for something, I come back in, I go in the garage, I'm cleaning out my candle stuff, and Ralph is on the phone with one of our friends from New York, and they wanted to see him. So he goes into the room to see what he's doing. One, he's laying down, face down. I've never seen Jose face down. He always sleeps on his side or up, sitting up. So Ralph is tapping him. Jose, he don't answer. So I'm like, well, did you turn the light on? Cause it's like 5, 6 o'clock already. And he's like, no. I was like, well, turn the fucking light on. Like, what are you doing? And so he turns the light on, and he's like, literally, his hand is like this. The other hand was down like this. And I just flipped him over. His lips were already turning. When I put him on the floor, I dragged him off the bed. And I started doing CPR. My husband's on the phone. Jade is in her room. She's hiding because she already dealt with that, so she didn't want to deal with it again. So now I'm on the floor, and I'm doing CPR and mouth to mouth, and the operator's like, don't do mouth to mouth because you don't know what he took or anything like that. So I'm still doing, the CPR on him until they come. They came, and I just ran outside. I didn't know what else to do. And ever since that day, my husband just went downhill after that. He was in the hospital from the 21st to the 29th, and they pronounced him dead on December 25th. And on December 25th, that's when, at 7 o'clock in the morning, they told us. I had went home just to go take a shower. He was already brain dead and everything. They showed us the pictures and stuff, and I didn't want to believe it. I was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, I'm telling you, man, he's already brain dead. There's nothing else we can do. So, one of our friends asked if we ever thought about donating his organs. So we did that. Saved 5 people. He gave his heart, his eyes, his kidneys, I think his pancreas and skin tissue. So I'm happy for that. I'm still waiting to hear, from everybody that he donated to. But that's my story.
You
And
do,
it was
and you do
27.
an event for donations, right?
Yeah. So we do it sometimes. They don't do it too much. They're basically admin help.
Mhm.
So they do a lot of events for us, for the moms and the families. Usually for Mother's Day, we just had an event in the Sanford Zoo. They just had us go there, so we did that. It was really, really nice too. So they do little events for us. Mother's Day, they do a Mother's Day brunch in Cocoa Beach. So we do that. They do jackets, where you could put patches, whatever you want, pictures, anything. You could do that as well. But I talk about him every day. There's not one day that I do not talk about this kid. And I lost a lot of friends, because of this, where, nobody basically reaches out anymore. I have a handful that I could say of my closest friends that still keep in contact with me every day. Actually, one of my best friends just moved here from New York. So, I have my girlfriend in Georgia. She calls me every other day. But his name is always, spoken about. I cremated him. So he lives in the house. I have a little section, where I keep him and all any ornaments that I, collect, from here or from the, organ donors. I put it in the curio for him. Shirts, I make a whole bunch of shirts with him on it. You know, and I just try to celebrate him as much as I can, you know. We actually had, an interview, where they came to the house, like they took everything apart and they just made it into like a little studio there, where I was able to, tell them Jose's story there too, so that was nice. They took a lot of pictures of everything, of Jose, his shoes, everything, little knickknacks here and there. But that's it, he'll forever be 27. And, like I told them, I still sit on the couch and I just wait to see if he's gonna let me that door. And I know he's not, but I just still, you know, sit there and just wait.
Well, every banner, every story, every time you say his name, you're making a difference. So, thank you. Awesome. Yes, she does.
That's right.
Chris or Jenny, you wanna talk about recovery for a second? Oop, Jenny's not.
I'll try.
Okay.
I almost feel kind of guilty. Because I'm lucky they still have mine. I told you this one out.
It's okay, we all do it.
We know for sure Timmy OD'd 3 times. Twice was in my husband's arms. One time he was trying to revive him, and Timmy said, "What the F are you doing kissing me?" He's like, "You were blue." He said, "I was sleeping." I'm like, "Oh Lord, have mercy." He thinks it's more like 5 times. One time he was testing something for someone, and my daughter took him to the hospital, and he had 3 shots of the Narcan, and they weren't going to give him any more. And Ashley pitched a fit. We were in Jupiter. She did not want him to tell us that he died, and the 4th one worked, but he continued to use, knowing risk. It's scary. It's hard. It breaks my heart. He's clean now.
And he's on one of the banners.
It's, he's clean. He's got 50% custody back of his boys. He spent about a year and a half in Jasper, not because of that, but because of domestic violence because of that. Not excusing him, by the way, it was both of them, but still. Drugs, alcohol, any of that just heightens anger. But he's doing well, and you know, I see you guys, and it makes me feel a little bit guilty, so bear with me. I know how lucky I am, and I know today how much more lucky I am. He was gonna come and speak, and he will eventually come and speak. He's in Bradenton now, so it's 2 hours. But he wants to, he's extremely charismatic. He's handsome, if I can't say so myself. But he can reach people, like he said, just one, and that's all that matters. Because if we each reach just one, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 12. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And those 12 can reach 12, and those 24 can reach 24. So don't stop. As much as it hurts, Mama, don't stop. So from a grateful mom, I thank you all for being so brave and sharing your stories when you don't have them anymore. That's it before it was due.
Thank you.
Just coming in here to show respect.
One of the other moms, she actually lives in California, her daughter is on the billboard. And I promised her that I would mention this because her son right now is currently in Phoenix House and trying to get a furlough to come here and have Phoenix House represented, and they turned him down flat, and they wouldn't even discuss it with me. even though I tried calling and everything, which is, that's their mission, and I don't mean to be bad-mouthing them, but I think this would have done him a world of good. But I did promise him that I would mention that he wanted to be here, how much he loved his sister. So it's, the Will family, and, Andrea is on the, I forget which one she's on, but she's on there. But like I said, I promised his mom and him that I would mention her and mention that he wanted the message to go out that recovery can happen. You know, he's working hard, he's gonna be an electrician, he's just finished up school, classes for it, and he's gonna be coming out soon, so the next time we will have him at the event. Because it's just as, beneficial to those that are in recovery as it is, to those that are not. Because if they can come out and they can speak also, and they can put their story with our story, it makes a huge impact. So, Paula, you wanna take a minute? Can you take a minute?
Yes.
Huh? Okay. I know. Thank you. All right.
Hi, my name's Paula. I'm Caitlin's mom. She's forever 28. She died November 12th, 2020. And I'm not quite sure when she started with her substance abuse. She grew up like everyone's child. She was happy and very charismatic. She would dance around the house, and she would always be very animated. She used to sit on the floor, and she used to like animate all the Disney movies. She used to love doing Grandma Willow, and she'd talk in the mirror, and, you know, do all this stuff. And she was just really she probably should have been an actress because she had it all memorized. And she was a very happy kid. She went boating, and boating was her life, and beaching, because we had a boat when she was born. So she loved the life that she lived. Unfortunately, I have my own guilt in this, which I know I'm not supposed to. I was in a very abusive marriage. And I know it took a lot out of her to see what I went through and how long I stayed. And I found out later on, because I have 2 other children, that my ex-husband sexually abused my daughters. And she didn't tell me for a long time, and she acted like it didn't bother her. But clearly it did, because I know she started using opioids of some kind. I want to say towards the end of high school, but just like here and there, smoking pot, stuff like that. From what she told me later on, her 21st birthday, someone gave her Dilaudid. And she started off, I think she started off with Xanax and bars, I guess they call them bars or whatever. And then I guess, so he didn't give her Dilaudid that day, he gave her bars. And her and her boyfriend would get them from this kid in the neighborhood. And then they went one time, and she said he told them that, he didn't have any bars, that he had Dilaudids, but they had to shoot it up, they couldn't, do anything else, and they said no. But they got worse and got more drug sick, so they decided that they would do that. And she started spiraling at that point. We found out about her addiction because she started getting really thin, and you could tell there was a change in her personality. She wasn't bubbly and all these things like she was. And then she was getting a little bit better. We were trying to, she wanted to get better, so we kept her home. We were giving her insurance stuff because she weighed like 95 pounds. And she was doing better, and then her brother died, not from an overdose. He died from the flu, but he was 30, he lived up north. And after he died, she just spiraled and got really bad. She ended up getting arrested because she got pulled over and there was drugs in the car. And I told her I would bail her out, but I wanted her to go to rehab, which she agreed to. So we kept her home, and I started looking for a rehab to send her to. And we were giving her insurance, keeping her home, trying to keep her clean. I talked to a rehab up in South Florida. And they told me that they couldn't take her because if I was keeping her home, then she wasn't sick enough. They said, she's not gonna die from, her drug of choice was heroin and cocaine. And they said she's not gonna die from coming off of that, she's just gonna be really sick. And we said, if you've got her home, we can't do it. And they explained to me the reason is because when they go into rehab, the first 7 days, they make a lot more money. It's like $2,400 a day. If she comes in partially clean, they don't make that money. And, I remember it was 4th of July, and I was arguing with him on the phone, and he said, ma'am, I understand, I know how you feel. He said, I'm a drug addict, and he said, I was on a bridge, and he said, so I understand what you feel. And I said, listen, I'm yelling at my bedroom. I said, you have no clue. I said, unless you're a parent watching your child slowly die, do not tell me you know how I feel, or where I'm at. And he said that he was gonna, give my message to someone else and see if there was any way they could do anything. So then a couple of days later, I was at the grocery store and they called me from this, rehab out in California called Desert Palms. And, they said that they would take her, they wanted her to go out there because it was far away, she wouldn't be near any dealers or anything like that. And he said, can you get her here in 24 hours? He said, if you give me your credit card, you know, I'll buy a ticket. And I just happened, thank God, to have a credit card that had nothing on it, was brand new. So I flew out to California the next morning. She was all excited because she figured she was going to rehab and it was at the beach. Desert Palms is in Palm Springs, which is the middle of the desert. But
You're seeing?
drive there. But they don't give them their phones like in South Florida. A lot of times they have their phones or whatever. And she did really well there. They had her write a letter to her brother and then, burn it or whatever so she could say goodbye. And she told me at that point that she thought it saved her life. And she wanted to actually go to a rehab, a sober living out there in San Diego where she wanted one that had was really strict. And she stayed out there for quite a while. She had to come back in November to go to court for what she'd got arrested for. And I couldn't believe it because she had put on weight. She had dimples again. I had forgotten she had dimples because she was 95 pounds. I mean, as it is, I had to buy her leggings to wear under her jeans because she was so cold. And she came home and she was doing really well. She was gonna go back out there and then met a guy. So she stayed here. And she did good for a while. She got pregnant and had my grandson in 2017.
That's him on her shirt. He's so cute.
That's right. And she was doing really well, but her boyfriend kept relapsing. And then she relapsed once, then she was getting better. At one point I sent her to rehab. She went to TRV in Umatilla. And she liked it. She did really well there. And she was doing really good. I don't really know, around her dying was really a difficult thing because she was doing well and she always wanted to help other people. And one of the girls that she met in rehab lived in Castleberry, and Katie was living at the time out in Melbourne. She was in a sober living and then she was renting a room from someone. And I had Ryder. She had signed over power of attorney to me for him until she could get on her feet. And her friend was in Castleberry. Her friend's boyfriend kept relapsing, and she kept telling me, I'm gonna move to Castleberry and live with her so that I can help her stay clean and make sure that he doesn't come back. And I wasn't really happy because Castleberry was really close to Oviedo, which is where her drug dealers were, because we used to live out there. And she said, Mom, I'm gonna be fine. Don't worry about me. And this was when she was in rehab. One of her best friends had died, and I had to tell her. And I said to her, Katie, you've really got to stay clean this time. And she said, Mom, I'm not gonna die. And I said, well, do you think Kylie didn't say that too? I said, you don't know what's gonna happen. So she moved in with Nicole, and she was looking for a job and stuff. And she seemed really happy. And I went over her house on November 7th, and I remember walking in. We were bringing furniture for her because they had this apartment. And she had her hair up in a messy bun, and she was dancing around, sweeping, and she was happy cleaning, which was amazing. But she was having a great time. We brought her all this stuff, and I brought Ryder over for the weekend so she could spend time with him. And she said, once I get my license back this winter, when I get my taxes, she said, have him come live with me. But she told me she still had belongings in Melbourne, and she needed to go get. And she said, I have a friend of ours knows someone with a big truck, and he's gonna take me to go get him. And I said, well, who's his friend? She said, you don't know him, his name's Ryan, you don't know him. And she needed $30 for gas for his truck. So I didn't really know what day she was going. I just said, I don't want you going with Ryder. I don't want him in a truck with someone that you don't know, this and that. I picked up Ryder on Monday night, And, usually she called most of the time, I haven't heard from her in a couple days, and then her friend messaged me on Friday and said, have you heard from Katie, her roommate? And I said, no, where is she? And she said, well, I lost her on Wednesday night. And she told me that they went with this guy Ryan, they met him in Chiliota, and they met up with him. And, she said that they were in the car, and Nicole had some kind of a abscess or bruise or something on her knee that was painful, she had been in the hospital for. And she said, well, him and his girlfriend told her that they could give her something for her knee. And she said, and Katie said, don't do it, don't take anything. She said, we don't do that stuff. We don't do that, you know, and she said, don't do it. And she said, I should have listened to her, but I took it, and she OD'd. Katie called 911, they wanted to leave her on the side of the road, and Katie said, no, we're not leaving her here. And she called 911 for her, and she made them wait until the ambulance came. Being 2020, she couldn't go with her. So they took her to the hospital. And what I found out later was, and then she said that she had called Katie a couple times and they weren't willing to bring her to the hospital to her. So this was Wednesday night and now it's Friday and I couldn't get a hold of her and I was trying really hard to find her and, I knew she'd be mad. I didn't know if she had relapsed. I was hoping not, but I didn't know what happened. So then Saturday I finally had to post on Facebook, has anyone seen her? Has anyone heard from her? She would have called by now. She has Ryder on the weekends. And I really didn't feel good at this point about it. And I called her friend, I said, you need to put out a missing persons for her. You need to call the police, that needs to come from you because you were with her. So she called the police. And she called me back and she said, they said they might know something, that they're gonna call me back, and they didn't call back. So finally I called the sheriff's department in Orlando, because that's the last time I had seen her. And she said, I'm gonna have someone call you back, it's gonna be an unmarked number or whatever. It was like 11 o'clock on the 14th. And, my phone rang like 5 minutes later. It wasn't a blocked call, it was the Orlando Police or Sheriff's Department. And I picked up the phone and he said, first thing I need to tell you is that I'm a homicide detective. Really don't remember a lot after that because once they say that, you know what's coming. And they told me that they found her body Thursday morning. That, they had a video camera of this big truck driving down the road and they pushed her body out into the street. And I asked if they gave her Narcan, he said she was in full rigor at the time. And that they had done an autopsy already. And he told me, he asked me, about tattoos or whatever. And, he told me that, they had the video and that they had asked people in the neighborhood and they all recognized the truck and said it belonged to this guy Ryan, whose name she was with. And he said, I'm not sure what we can get him with. At the very least, we'll get him for, illegally, dumping a body or whatever, which is a misdemeanor. So come to find out, he didn't say anything. A few days later, I got a call from him asking me if I knew who this guy was, and I said, no, why? And he said, his name keeps coming up in our investigation. So I had heard that someone had messaged me and told me that a friend of theirs, the guy that actually originally started her on pills, but that she was friends with, had gotten in a fight with Ryan and that it was because of her. So I messaged his ex-girlfriend. I said, what do you know? Do you know what happened? As they said he was in jail. She sent me back a copy of a police report that apparently that Wednesday night, the police came out at like 11, 12 at night to this guy, RJ's RV. Because there was a fight, and apparently Katie went with this guy Ryan, and Ryan went up to his door. I assume he was a drug dealer. He lived in an RV in someone's yard, so that would be my guess. And she stayed in the car, and this other guy, Chris, that they were friends with, came around the corner, and him and Ryan got in a fight. Him and Ryan got in a fight, and at some point, RJ pointed a gun at Katie's head. So when the police came and they told him that, the cop said, I asked the cop and I said, why wasn't he arrested? And he said, well, in the police report it says that RJ said he didn't have a gun, he didn't own a gun, and he didn't put a gun in her head. They didn't check him. And that she could still press charges the next day, if she wanted to, which she said she did. And then they left. Now, she had to die in order to be in full rigor, not very long after that. And I told him, I said, you know, she had real bad anxiety, she was taking, Klonopins and stuff, which she had none of in her, well, she did have in her system, I'm sorry, but she didn't have any left. I knew she was waiting to get them filled up the next day. And I told him, I said, I don't have anxiety, but if I had someone put a gun to my head, I would have anxiety. So I asked him, because they said they weren't, you know, they didn't see any needle marks, I'm not even sure they were for them. They had apparently dumped her body. I asked him, she had, when the ME's report came back, she had enough fentanyl in her system to kill 25 people. She had no heroin, she had no cocaine, she didn't have marijuana, she had nothing else other than the Klonopin that she's supposed to have in her system. And of course, he did tell me that although she wanted to press charges, that none could be pressed because now she was dead. I said, well, that's convenient. He did say that, and I had to fight with them continually. They finally picked him up for drugs like a month later and questioned him about her death. His girlfriend told him to shut the fuck up, and she wasn't telling anything. He had to admit he was with her because they have a video camera and because there's a police report that says he was with her. But he claimed that he dropped her off at Maryland Fried Chicken at 2 in the morning and she was on a phone with someone arguing some guy, and it must have been someone in an identical big black truck that killed her and dumped her body.
Must.
And they said, we know he's lying, you know he's lying, but we can't prove it. I mean, we pulled her cell records, she hadn't been on the phone at 2 in the morning. Now, when her body was pushed out of the car, they told me that she had no shoes on, she had her telephone cord was wrapped around her waist, but she had no phone. So I kept telling him, can't you ping her phone, can't you ping her phone? Because we looked at it and we saw that she had many phone calls at 1 in the morning. And they pinged his phone and saw that he was near where the body was found at that time, 9 a.m. when they dumped the body. But he said he fell asleep in a parking lot. But then they said they couldn't charge him because they said he'll hire an attorney, and the attorney will say that he lent somebody his vehicle, which is ridiculous because you can't lend someone your vehicle and tell the police that you're sleeping in a parking lot at the same time. He said no, you know, he said, well, she was a previous addict. Well, he said, wasn't she? And I said, well, what's that have to do? He said, well, the judge is not going to sign off on pinging her phone in this kind of a case. So basically, he got away with murder. They did say that he had called, they did originally tell me, which they didn't do, that they were going to question him because he had originally called for 3 other people. They know he's a drug dealer. But he had called for 3 other people in the 2 weeks prior to Katie's death, and they wanted to know why he didn't call for her. But nothing was ever done. I mean, I follow him, he never gets arrested. He gets arrested and it always gets dropped, all the time. I don't know if he's a CI, but he, you know, it never goes to, it never
That's what
goes
happens if they
anywhere.
become a CI. They
Yeah.
pretty much lose them.
Yeah, he never gets in trouble for anything. So basically, you know, it's just been 5 years. They're not going to do anything, and he's just going to walk free, which is really horrible. I can't stand it. You know, I did talk to the television stations, and we worked with a couple of the people in the state. So they did finally pass a law last year. I think it was last year. I can't remember. Might have been 2 years ago, because I remember I was on
I think it was
TV.
2 years ago.
I was on TV a couple of times.
Yep.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. It was right after I moved to my house. So they finally passed a law that dumping a body is now considered a 3rd-degree felony instead of a 3rd-degree misdemeanor.
Okay.
So, because he kept saying, well, you're not going to be happy if we arrest him for that. I said, well, so better to let him get away with everything. So that is passed, and I now work with Project Noel because I'm raising my grandson. So we help the children that are affected and left behind, the ones that have to deal with all of this stuff and have a hard time with it. He had just turned 3 when she died. So he was okay then. As he gets older, it's getting much harder because he doesn't understand. I told him back then that a bad man gave her bad medicine. Of course, better than the cops, he said to me, well, he should be in jail. I said, yes, he should. But he, you know, so I'm gonna have to explain more to him later on. But right now, and it's not that it's a lie, it's just that I'm gonna have to explain about his mother and everything else. But we help the kids that are left behind so that they don't feel abandoned, don't feel unloved, don't feel, you know, that they don't grow up with that and maybe end up following, because they do have that in their chemistry, you know, to be an addictive personality possibly. I mean, his mother was addicted, his father was addicted. I was telling Lisa today, he recently told me that his father hasn't seen or spoken to him in over 3 years. And and recently he told me, I don't have a mom and I don't have a dad, maybe I don't deserve parents. Which broke my heart, because that's so not true, and my daughter loved him so much, she used to call him her greatest adventure. And she would have never left him if she wasn't killed. So now, I talk about her to him to keep her alive, I talk about her at functions, and I help the other children so that, you know, they can feel better about themselves, and to help the grandparents and aunts and uncles that are raising them, because it's a big expense. And we do also help the ones that are recovering. If, you know, if they're recovering, we would love to see them recover, so other parents don't have to go through what we did and bury our children. So we help them all and hope to help them one kid at a time. Yeah, that's what I do to kind of keep her alive and stay sane, I guess, because I've never had the time to have the nervous breakdown that I deserve. That's what I tell people, I don't have time. I had to tell my kids and be there for them, and I had to be there for him, so, you know, I don't have time to break down.
And he's just the sweetest boy ever. I might be a little biased, but he is.
He is a sweet little boy.
Lisa, I don't know if you're up to it. I'm watching every one of your facial expressions as we're sharing these stories, and they're all expressions of shock. Like, and
It hurt me to hear that she lost her friends. Yeah. No one should lose their friends.
No.
These
Oh,
are
yeah.
my new
No.
friends, because I
But
lost
that's-
friends and family.
when you're dealing with death, and especially when it's a child's death, people start to back off because, you know, it's not the right order of things, and they don't know what to say, and they don't know how to deal with you and all that. When it's a death due to an overdose, it's 10 times worse. I mean, I have had people who have known me for a long time look at me and go, "Aren't you embarrassed about how Carrie died?" Absolutely not. I am not embarrassed. She didn't wake up one day 7 years ago and say, I'm gonna start using today, I'm
See,
gonna
in
be an
the
addict.
beginning, I was
Yeah.
though, I was embarrassed. You
I
know,
get that.
Because I'm like, right,
It's
and
what people, it's the way people made you feel.
Yes.
I guess,
That's terrible.
but it was
Yeah.
just to me being in denial about it as well. So I guess me putting myself in that situation of, I don't know where he got this from or whatever, but yet he was dealing with it for so long. And then I had said, Shawnee,
Mhm.
there was something posted on Facebook, about addiction. And I said something, I forgot what I said, and she said, no, your son was an addict. So when she said that, I was like, holy shit, like, somebody just told me, you know, straight up in my face that,
Your son didn't matter.
well, that he was an addict. You know, she came out, it hit me, but it was true. It was just, it's still
Yeah,
hard
but
for
there's a
me
general way to do it.
to, it was just hard for me to believe. And then I guess that's what other people, you know, are thinking, oh, my son's an addict.
Well, like
but
I
she's
said,
still, you know.
Our kids, Katie and Jose and Joseph and JJ and Carrie, they didn't wake up one day and say, I'm gonna be an addict today, and 6 years from now, 4 years from now, a year from now, whatever, I'm gonna die and I'm gonna ruin my parents' life and I'm gonna turn their world upside down. Addiction is a family disease, you all know that. It affects every single person that they come in contact with.
And it doesn't have a face.
Right,
No, it
right,
does
and it
not.
doesn't discriminate, it
No.
doesn't care your race, your religion, your economic status, it doesn't care about any of that.
The police
All right.
have to know that. The
Right.
detectives, they look at it differently
Right.
because our kids
They
are
do.
expendable.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had, and I know all of you have had, people look at you and go, well, they were an addict. So what, they deserve to die? She leaves behind a mother, a father, a brother, a stepmother, step siblings. Like, are you kidding? You know, and again, and I've looked at officers and I've said, she didn't wake up one day and choose to die.
Right.
Yes, she made a choice. And I had somebody very close to me that had said to me that she died, that the person that they had lost had died from an illness, and my daughter died from a choice. And so I got extremely upset with that, and I said, so she chose to die? Like, I don't understand that statement. But yes, initially she made a choice. She took a drug, she made a choice. She had stuff that happened in her life that I don't share because those are her stories and she's not here to tell them. And I'm not sure if she wants me to, so we don't do that. But yes, she made a choice that day. And from that moment on, her brain was altered. Life changed as we knew it. She became addicted. She became somebody that struggled with substance use disorder for 6 years. And eventually she lost her life. The choice she made cost her life. She didn't choose to lose her life. And there is a difference, and that's what people don't understand. You good?
Hello, I'm Lisa, I'm JJ's mom. He's forever 27, which doesn't sound right when I was writing it on there, it just feels weird. And it's only been a year for me. I lost my father August 1st, and then my son died 2 months later. So 2024 was a rough year. We do have addiction in our family. My brother, my nephew, on my husband's side, there's, we have alcoholics and whatever, and so that's a big thing that is scary because, they say, I've been cleaning stuff out and I saw something that said, don't blame the addict, blame the disease, and don't hate the person, hate the disease or whatever. And so, my son, he drank when he was probably 15, and I didn't know this, but my brother and my nephew drank, and, well, my nephew taught him how to hide alcohol in Gatorade. So, but I didn't understand any of that, and I didn't know it until one day I kicked him out, and there was alcohol bottles completely under his bed. I was like, well, that's interesting. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, we moved to Ocala in 2017, and he was buying Oxy because my brother was giving him Oxy, and he'd have him sell Oxy down in Broward. I found all this out later. My brother died in 2018, and I was mad at him for a while because he brought this on to my son. In 21, we lost my niece to suicide, and my son, that really took him over the edge. He got drunk one night and fell off our balcony and broke his back. We did think he was dead because the breath came out of him. Our daughter came banging on our door and said, JJ's dead, and we ran over there. And he wasn't, so, they took him to the hospital. The system is broken. The system is so broken all over. Nobody wants to help us. There's rules, he ended up in the hospital, we weren't allowed to go see him, wouldn't let us in. He had broken he had a fracture in his spine. We ended up getting him over to Encompass to a physical rehab we got them to keep him an extra few days until we found a rehab that would take him. And it was all the same thing. He's not high, he's not on drugs, he doesn't fit our parameters. And I'm like, he doesn't have that in his system because he fell off a balcony and broke his back. Right. So yes, he is on medications that the doctors are giving him, but you won't let him come there. No, he has to be ambulatory, he can't have any type of walker or anything. They wouldn't take him. We called all over, finally found St. John's, a recovery place, took him. And he went there for a few months. And my favorite picture that I'm going to get you to put on my shirt was when he was in rehab. We took his son, we went to visit him, we went to the beach all the time, and he was so happy. So fast forward, like I said, when we lost Katie, JJ was never the same. And then my nephew, who taught my son how to drink, died on a park bench in 23. He was not a drug addict, he was an alcoholic, homeless, by choice. Everybody tried to help him. And his report came back, alcohol, Ambien, and just enough fentanyl to kill him. You would have thought that would have woken my son up, and that didn't. That just put him further into depression, and I really thought I was going to lose him the weekend of my nephew's funeral, cause he was over the edge. So, you know, fast forward, he did get in trouble, for domestic violence. So he did, you know, get arrested a few times, and they meet some really great friends in jail. I'm being sarcastic. They come out with these people that are, you know, in 23, in January, he came out of jail, and, he brought this guy to our house, and I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna help my son. He's in rehab, and he's gonna bring my son, not rehab, but in AA, and NA, he was taken to meetings. We had a business property that we let our son stay in when he wasn't, on the road driving his truck. This kid moved in with them, and then they brought this girl in, and they proceeded to, organize everything in the shop and steal everything. They stole everything, sold it for whatever. My son OD'd twice with them there. He said that they drugged him. I don't have proof, but, you know, we were the ones there at the hospital, picking him up, bringing him back, and, the one kid, I bought a bus ticket, and I sent him back to New York. I said, you need to get out of my son's life, and this is how I'm doing it, but go home. I did, little old me, you know, put this kid on the bus and said, get out of here. So the girl was still there, and, we got a call one night, my son's flipping out, saying that they're drugging him, and come help him, please. 3 a.m, we drive down there, and I don't know what these people were doing. They had gotten on his computer, and they had made a lease for our property, and saying that it was signed over to these people. They didn't know that my son was not a junior, and so obviously it went hold up in court, but we're like, they were trying to take our property, because this is what these people do. They find people who are struggling, they take them in, they got his social security number, and they try and rob you for everything that you have. So they weren't able to get our stuff. I did make those calls and alert everybody, but they did get my son's stuff. They kept hacking into his phone, his computer. And anyway, so that was another trauma he went through, and that we went through as parents. But we stayed by his side. I never gave up on my son. I never, ever gave up. Fast forward into 24, he had met a girl, and he was very happy, but there was somebody else that came in the picture, and he gave my son fentanyl. And so my son started doing fentanyl. How my nephew died from it and my son didn't, I don't know. The officer says, well, if they only do it once, they can die from it, but if they build the tolerance up, that they're going to. So, am I proud of it? No, I did the best I could as a parent. My son was a good boy. He was an addict. He was trying to not make it. And I've never understood it until I've lost my son, because there are times in the house that I fall to the floor, and I just want to stop. And I don't know how to stop it. And I know taking drugs or alcohol is not the answer. I'm strong that way. Lucky me, I guess. I don't know, but I get it. I get it why there was holes in the walls, and I get it why he wanted to stop the pain, and why all of our children do that. They try to stop the things in their head that they can't turn off. So anyway, long story short, my son got a new job. He was so excited about this new trucking company. He was just ecstatic. Met a new girl, and said, hey Mom, I want to bring her over to ride the horses on Saturday. Have them ready. Okay, let me just get out there and do that. He had a nice conversation with his dad on Thursday that he took the girl, and they had a picnic, and it was a whole funny thing, and my husband just cherishes that wonderful story. Friday, I shot him a text, and I said, can you tell me what time? I'm going to get the baby in the morning. Baby, he's 6. He's always going to be my baby grandson. no response. 9 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed, you know, kind of give me an idea what time you want to come, no response. Next day, a friend comes over, we go work the horses, and I have his son, and nothing. I finally come in, I asked my husband, I said, have you talked to Jay? And he said, not since Thursday, and I went, well, he hasn't responded. And now as a mom, you know that there's something not right. And so I took my grandson home. I'm not taking him over there. And so my husband and I went over to the shop, and my husband walked in first, as he always does, and the lights were on, so I was like, oh my God, he's in the bathroom, and my husband went to the right, and I went to the left, and there was spaghetti, it was a bowl of spaghetti, you know, pot. He didn't use bowls, he'd make it in a big pot, and I put my purse down. And I'm relieved because I'm thinking, no, he's in the bathroom, and I pick my head up and I start to walk forward and I see his legs on the floor. And I continue, I scream, I'm like, oh my God, and I got there and I dropped to the floor and I held him and I screamed, my husband came running out, and he was blue. From what I understand, I don't think it was maybe 4 hours. What we feel is he was getting ready to go pick the girl up because he was only driving a motorcycle. At the time, we feel he was maybe going to the girl to get her and the child in the car. And he didn't make it. And it's only a year, so I'm still just coming out of the numb stage. I have a hard time looking at his pictures. I don't want to ever let his story die, or ever forget him. But yes, family, friends, people. I post all the time on Facebook. I don't care. I do it because there's people that I know that have lost their children, and they're suffering in silence. And it's funny because my son had a tattoo that said "suffer in silence," and I'm like, what is that? Now I understand. This path that we're on is a very lonely path. Nobody knows what you've gone through. Yes, when you have children that have had cancer, that's a different set of circumstances. That's a different set of trauma and pain and sad stories. And everything that we go through, we all have gone through our stories. When there's addiction, there's usually jail time or arrest or bad decisions, you know. So I'm still trying to deal with that. Living up here and leaving all my friends from South Florida, didn't have anybody, and I ended up, you know, I talked to Lisa, I found Lisa on Facebook, and I had just gone on a cruise and met Miss Heaven, and I ended up joining Heaven with her dance group, and that, I mean, I am so touched to have new friends that know me now, because the people that knew Lisa before, that Lisa's gone. I'm not that person anymore, I'm a different person, and they know, they'll see my face, and they'll give me a hug at class, and for them to show up here is just amazing, and I love you both so much. And so they're giving me the strength to get out of bed and go to class and show up. So I highly recommend, if you're here in Ocala,
She's gonna make me come.
Sorry, and Donna, whose mom is passing, she's
Yeah, one of our other moms, her mom.
But, you know, I don't do anything else for myself, but I go and for an hour or two, I don't think about how sad I am, you know, and I have other women around me that have pain too, and we all just go there and we support one another, and inside and off the dance floor. So I highly recommend finding your place, whether it's dance or something. We have to have some, you know, I think my big thing was this year, and I told my husband, I said, you know, I feel like if I stop talking about him, I'm giving up on him, and I don't want to have that feeling like he didn't matter, because he did matter, and I have his son, and you know, I'm here to help his son remember who his dad was, and it's hard. So I thank you for letting me talk. I've just taken one day at a time, and I've made friends, and that's what's really changed my life, because I don't know, I look at life different. My husband said, oh, the guys painted our doors and they fell over and something happened. I went, I basically said to him, I said, so go buy new doors. I'm like, really, in the scheme of things? We just saw our son's face on the billboard. He's never coming home. So I give a shit about doors. So it has changed my life. Also turning 60 has changed my life, but what really matters? It's friendship. It's people that love you, that want to be in your life. And you know what? Fuck whoever doesn't call you back or doesn't want to be in your life, because you know what? You want to hope that someday this shit doesn't knock on their door, because nobody,
That's right.
nobody escapes this shit. I see it on Facebook and actors and rich people, and I'm like, if they couldn't save their kid, they had all the money in the world.
Which got them on TV, we don't, that's why.
Exactly.
Difference.
Exactly.
Because our kids matter just as much as theirs.
Exactly. So you know what? You grab who you can. You know, you find somebody that makes you smile and your body light up, and you hold on to them for dear life, because I'm a year. I don't know how. I saw something and it said the further you get away from the last time you saw them, is the harder it gets, because you can still hear their voice. The other day, I swear as God is my witness, I smelled smells in my car, and I'm like, it smelled like his cigarettes, and I was like, dude, are you? I mean, I get a lot of signs, but I'm like, he's there for me. And the other night, Lisa again was the first person I contacted when he died, and I'm like, I don't think you can help me, because I thought it was for children, and she goes, oh, I can help you, and man, we were there having coffee, and then the other night, after
Couple
dance, I wasn't even supposed to be where I was, because we're dancing at a different place, temporarily, and I left, and I went, you know there's a billboard near Cheddar's, I'm gonna go check it out, and of course, I get there, do the U-turn, and I'm in the parking lot, and I'm trying to video because it's so hard with the big lights and everything, and I see this car pull around, I'm like, good, go around me, I'm looking for my son on the billboard. It's Lisa, she gets out of the car.
So the funny part was, because it's Cheddar's and I wasn't sure where it was, and I, for some reason, thought Cheddar's was farther up the road.
200?
Yeah.
200.
So, yeah. I thought it was further up the road. So my husband and I are driving, and he takes me the back way, and I hate it when he takes me the back way, because then I can't find anything. And I get out onto 200, I'm like, what the hell is this place? And then all of a sudden, Kerry's Standalone comes on. And John's like, oh, right there. Your daughter's yelling for you. It was almost like, she was like, hey, dumbass, I'm in here.
Right.
Because that would be her. That would be her.
Right.
So I pull in, and there's this truck blocking it. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, what is wrong with people? Why can't they drive? Where are they? And then my husband goes,
Get out of the way.
whoever it is taking a picture. I'm like, shit, it's one of the moms. Okay. And here I am, and I'm like, and then I pull up, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Lisa. So I'm pretty sure that JJ and Kerry said, this is where you're going today. Because it was just too coincidental. I said, where the hell is this place? And there was Kerry. And then there was Lisa.
Amazing.
Yes, and John Jess. Yes, and both their husbands are named John. Yes, Greg.
Shut the front door.
Yes, ma'am. And my husband is so sweet, he has been sitting in the car since we got here.
Mine is out there, I don't know
A
what
lot
he's
of the
doing.
dads, I don't know about, like, a lot of the dads have a hard time with it. They really do. They have a hard time. You would think it would be us, because we're the ones that carry them. My daughter was my husband's stepdaughter, but we also lost his daughter. So it doesn't, he doesn't come to a lot of these things. And, sometimes it bothers me, because I wish he would be here. But I also understand that it's very difficult for him, because it brings back memories of when my stepdaughter passed away also. She didn't die from overdose. She died from a rare form of autoimmune encephalitis.
But she died.
But she died.
4 years before my daughter. And then we were just getting, back into the swing of things, and here comes 4 years later, and we get hit with Kerry is gone now. So, but does anybody else want to say anything? All right. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Every time we share and we help each other, we are making a difference, and they are making a difference. Yeah, are you kidding? I heard it 3 times. That last time I was like, oh, I don't want to get up again. So this is my nephew, well, both my nephews. He is my tech support.
He's doing great.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I got a new, well, I got a new phone and I said I need to, this videotaped.
Yeah.
I said I got a new phone, good luck.
Well, he got you. He been filming the whole time.
I know.
They know when they're
I was talking,
Puerto Rican, right?
Paula, talking. We were talking the other night, or last night I guess it was, since we're all here, in Florida, about having a meeting of the moms, like once a month, and we're all from everywhere, so like we would take turns, like we're both from Ocala, Paula's in Umatilla, so we're pretty close, but
I'm in
you're in our,
Eustis.
oh, now you're in Eustis.
Oh, you got the board to buy a house.
That's
I
right.
got forced.
If you wanna dance,
Reach out to
and
me
then,
because.
well, maybe we could meet somewhere and she could do a class for us, we could do
Correct.
something
That'd be
like
fun.
that.
Oh, you
That would be
love it.
fun.
Find me a spot, I'll go.
We can all get together, we can start meeting like once a month. And, she's in Samantha's in Hernando County, so we, so that,
Tampa, going towards Galway, Tampa.
so,
Yeah.
she's like, I can drive every time, I said, no, we're coming from everywhere, we'll find places we'll all meet. So,
Yeah.
And I can tell you.